Hi everyone, welcome to the Big Three, my speak for their tears, strive, thrive and live, my mantra for living right now, and also promoting growth through challenges, which is a massive thing for me. There's come to light since Thursday. I had an awkward interaction with a man who's now a good friend of mine, Caleb, since Thursday, and I've come to realise that growth through challenges is great. It is perfect. The amount of exertion you're able to put in and channel from your emotional energy and adversity from your past to use that energy and grow through challenges and go and do events that are made up or that you can make up yourself are huge and really beneficial to where you can grow from for yourself and where you can take your life in the future. It also came into light with Caleb. Something that touched me personally was unresolved emotions and feelings and how they bottom up, how they all just seem to bottle up sometimes, or not just sometimes, but they actually do. I think of it like this, some psychologists might call it amplification or amplification, where if you have a chocolate cake in your fridge, and if you love chocolate cake, but you're not allowed to eat that chocolate cake, every day that you walk past that cake, the want and need for that cake and the anxiety for that cake builds up and builds up and builds up, where eventually we can't help it but we attack that cake. And that's sometimes what issues are like and what unresolved issues are like. And so what we need to do is we need to come back, and we not only have to do physical things to help us grow, but we also need to know how to address that issue, i.e. that cake. After speaking with Caleb and the passing of his father, it really hit home with myself and how I felt. So for those that don't know, my twin sister and I, we sort of floated in between our parents before we were 7, and then when we were 7 we were sent to go live with our father. And our father, as lovely as the man as he was, he came with his own issues, and as such, the way that he was brought up, he enforced onto us, and to say the least, there's nothing that I would wish on anybody. Abuse, neglect, abandonment. We moved around from different houses and different family and friends and had to go to different schools, and at the time as a child you think it's lovely and you think it's cool, you're having sleepovers all the time. But we never got interactions with our parents, and we never ever got to see them or know who they are. And after the abuse, all that we were left with was resentment, hate, solitude and isolation. It wasn't until lately, after meeting Caleb, that it really started to hit home a little bit. So I needed to point out other ways that we can help you. It's not enough for people to say you can be a better person. You know, if you applied yourself better, maybe then, you know, you wouldn't have these sort of issues or problems all the time, which is fine. Constructive criticism is great, but it never points you in the right direction. You can lead a man to fish. You can teach a man to fish. You know, you can feed him for a day. You can teach a man to fish, and you'll feed him for a lifetime. I know I got that backwards, but I don't want to do this again. So in essence, what they're doing is they're teaching a man to fish, and then they put him in the desert. So you've given him the tools, you've given him this criticism, but you've given him no direction. I want to give you a couple of things that helped me. In 2009, 2010, when my father left me and my twin sister with our uncle for a weekend and never came back when we were 10 years old, and my uncle passed away in 2009, 2010, and it pretty much tore my heart out. The one man who gave me any cradle of ethics and morals and how to be treated and how to treat others died. I hadn't seen him for years, and my heart mourned his loss so much. So when my uncle passed away, my father ended up coming to the funeral, as it was his brother. My father and I were pallbearers for my uncle, which was fantastic. I never had the opportunity to speak to him. We had to take photos with him, and after I hadn't seen him for so long, I had to smile through gritted teeth and fight back the tears. It wasn't until a year later, after we started to communicate, that I wrote a letter to him. I couldn't pretend that everything was great anymore. And someone told me the best way to approach your offenders is to write a letter to them, or write a letter to yourself and a child and saying how sorry you are, or writing a letter to the perpetrator and saying, this is how I feel and this is what happened. So I wrote a letter to Dad, and I said about the hurt that he had caused me, the abuse, the physical abuse. We were never sexually abused. We were physically abused, the abandonment, the isolation we felt, the hurt that he put on us when we were young children, which we would never understand why. I still had those questions, but I had to let him know I could no longer call him Dad or Father. I called him by his first name, Michael. Funnily enough, he replied to the letter. He explained how sorry he was, about the remorse he felt for what he'd done to myself and my sister. And he apologised for the way he acted and how he treated us. And he said that he can't use his past anymore, from the way that he was treated from his family to the treatment of how he treated his children. And from that I learned to grow. I still only call him Michael up to that stage. And up till then, I guess I thought I'd learned to move on. And in 2015, I received a phone call from his partner, Beverly. She told me that Dad was sick, Michael was sick. He was in hospital for something that they didn't know. And so, if anything, I'm going to read a letter that I wrote to Michael and to myself. And what it's saying is my last weeks with Dad. What happened, how I learned to grow. In the last couple of years, I've not only learned to talk, but I've learned to listen. I've learned that listening is a selfless thing. It's giving someone else the opportunity to express themselves and not having any other comments about my pain or how I felt, but to let them tell me how they felt. Each person's individual story is individual to them. No matter how much you think that it correlates the same way, the emotions and the sentiment involved is always different. So I always give people now the time and opportunity to tell me their story. It's not about relaying stories back and forth. It's just about giving that person the opportunity to lift something off their shoulder, and then if anything, learn to have a conversation from that. So you're not just talking, you're listening. So I'm going to read the letter that I wrote to my father. It was my last week with Dad. So if anything, just take the opportunity to learn about writing letters to the people that may have hurt you, whether it's your ex-partner, your parents, the perpetrator, someone you don't know. And then also just take the time to write the letter and then read it to yourself. You don't have to keep it, you don't have to send it, just write that letter. Write it to yourself and learn to talk and learn to listen. So I'm going to read the letter. If you want to stop here, then that's fine. Remember, keep watching the big three, My Sweat for Their Tears, Strive, Thrive and Live. There's bigger and better things coming out, and I want you to be a part of it. So if you're going to stick around, have a listen while I read this to you. This really helped me in a lot of ways. So patience, if you would please. It's 3 pages, and it's not too bad. So my last days with Dad. I guess it's something I will always remember. Of course, it's the loss of my father, a day many of us will remember. But for me, the intensity and emotion felt in the last 2 weeks with Dad was a rush. I guess the reality of digesting as much as I possibly could after so many years apart, with so many missed opportunities, so many experiences to share with them from the past and the experiences yet to come. It was the 2nd of March, a Monday. I checked out my phone. I had a missed call from Beverly. I was at work, so I couldn't answer it, and decided to check my voicemail messages after work. I decided to check them before setting off on my way home, and first up, Beverly. She left a message saying that Dad wasn't doing very well and that he decided to check himself into hospital for a checkup and look at him to see what the problem was with him. I asked her how serious it was, to gauge my concern, whether it was life-threatening or was something serious but not to worry about, and Bev told me until they received the results from the test, They wouldn't know the magnitude of what they were dealing with to ease either question, but to know it wasn't serious enough that he had to be admitted for observation. That said, was the moment when reality kicked in. How much did I really feel for this man? Was this really happening? Who do I talk to? My father is not well. I will have to see him. I booked my flights for the 13th, the Friday the next week. After a few days of testing and being looked after under observation at hospital, Beverly tells me he isn't doing much better and his results won't be given until the following Tuesday, the 10th, as it was a public holiday on the Monday. So wait, we did. And the results, not good. He has Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, a fatal degenerative disorder that attacks the brain and causes it to degenerate rapidly. We all discovered how much the word rapidly can be underestimated at the worst of times. So with only a few days to wait until my flight leaves, I call Beverly daily for a progress report. She puts him on the phone so we can talk, and his speech was so slow. Way too slow for the people who knew him well. I remember the last time we spoke on the phone, it was hard to get a word in, and his energy on the phone was always so upbeat. But this time it was cut short. Beverly explained he fatigues a lot faster than normal, and even talking has started to become an effort of concentration, and maintaining fluidity was hard for him to keep up. It was like someone falling asleep mid-conversation, then coming to, and muttering the start and becoming clearer at the end of a sentence. Friday finally arrived, Friday the 13th. I get into Melbourne at 6:30, where I'm gratefully picked up by two of Dad's closest friends, Annie and Ronnie. On the way there, they tell me how they came to meet Dad. Dad had his bright orange bike parked out the front of a shop one day, and Dad spotted on Annie and Ronnie checking it out. And well, with Dad, all it took was a willing pair of ears, and he had them hooked. Ronnie had a bike, and it was looking for a group of riders to ride with, and Dad being Dad took him under his wing, and so began an endearing friendship between strangers and bikes. I got to Monash Hospital and believe Beverly is waiting for me outside Dad's room to greet me. After being in contact with her over the last week, to see her and give her a hug from me was like running over a finish line and feeling the relief of making my destination. Over the past week, I couldn't imagine going through what she endured, and would still for the next few weeks and onward. When I get into the room, Beverly tells him in his ear that I'm there. Dad turns his head towards me. I grab his hand, somewhat search and find me. I grab his hand, his eyes somewhat search and find me, but he is somewhat not focusing. The start of the debilitation of the brain. Uncle Roger is sitting next to him and explains his symptoms and what stage he is going through. It eases my curiosity, and it starts to sink in the gravity that Dad won't be walking out with us. I'm told he does his exercises. The physio has given him, which consists of hand clenching and moving his legs to maintain what mobility he still could control. Auntie Charmaine was there with me, comforting me. Having pillars of my childhood there for me and I for them was one of the few moments of my life I truly love my family. I would not want to be with anyone else at that moment. Auntie Charmaine gives me and Dad some time together, the first time in so many years. We had spoken and emailed each other quite often, with the last time being only 3 months before. Dad had been a victim of a hold-up and he had taken it hard. But aside from that, he told me he was having an affair with a bike, a victory. He took the passion he had in cars and he found it in his bikes, his friends, and the freedom of being himself. He was excited. It was a conversation I thought I would be hearing more of. I wanted to hear more of. We talked about the last time we saw each other at my Zendukai grading. He told me how proud of me he was for accomplishing something that, not that everyone couldn't do it, but I gave it everything I had. He spoke about what he wanted to teach people, about being excited about life and living it and never giving up on change. He spoke of family, about laughing, and about his bike brothers, riders for Christ, and connect riders, and being a part of a brotherhood built on religion and acceptance. I was told later that Dad has 3 weeks, and even then it may be sooner. Dad didn't know at that stage about his condition. He was still laughing and telling stories of being with Roger, Jenny, Irene and Ted at Ashley Gorge. Jumping and swimming in the river, Dad decides he can light a skyrocket, tie it to his legs and skip over it each time, but one step too late and he goes off and upwards. His rear end, and he jumps over the bridge into the river, and that's when he was 17. My flight is booked to the Gold Coast for the Sunday the 15th, but Dad is somewhat showing signs of weakness, so I'll rebook my flight for the 16th on Monday. The next day he is somewhat improved. I have a return flight booked for the next week, so I pray he has 2 weeks in him. Thursday the 19th, Beverly phones me to say that Dad may only have 24 hours. He is showing weakness in his breathing and is less mobile. She tells me the pastor from his church, Steve, is going to conduct a wedding ceremony for Dad as his last wish. Dad was adamant when he got out of hospital he's going to make her his wife, to the point he would get worked up in a tiff about it. But satisfied in the knowledge that it was in the mail, he was happy with that. I'm told Nikki, Tracy, Charmaine, Roger and other family members are there to attend it. It breaks my heart to not be there. I'm not only part of being a part of Dad's wish, but sharing this with my sisters, where it was too long between hugs. They get married, a weight is lifted. He has made a taken lady of Beverly, and he has, in his eyes of the Lord, become a husband. Congratulations, Dad. Friday the 20th. Tracy calls me. Dad is doing worse, and the doctors have taken away his dialysis machine, leaving his breathing to his own, and it's only right. Dad had become catatonic, unable to move, open his eyes. The only sign we knew he was with us still is he cried with Tracy. I was working. It was 1:30 in the afternoon. I know because I was on the road to another job site and had to pull over to call Tracy back. I was upset to say the least. My flights were booked for the next week and I was tapped out of cash to change my flight for the next Friday. So Tracy puts the phone to Dad's ear so I can say my final goodbyes. There is not enough I could have said to Dad. I've never been so grateful to have come from such a great guy, but if the only words I didn't have to say was goodbye, I could have lived with that. After speaking with Tracy, I called cousin Alice, and she came to comfort me, and with strict instruction from my auntie Alison to listen and absorb, Alice does, and she saved my dog Mana from a drenching. Thank you, Mana. She gives me 3 pounamus, one each for me, Tracy and Nicola. She got them from a lady called Tui from Hokitika, who blessed them when Alice got them in New Zealand. Seeing I was upset, Alice changed my flights for me so I could fly the next night. I just want to hug her. I'll call Tracy and Beverly and tell them to tell Dad, hang in there, I need to see him. If you see photos of me with my pounamu on, you will see Dad's wedding ring around it. It's a silver band with pearl shell wrapped around it. I wear it as often as I can. Saturday the 21st, I arrive at Gold Coast Airport for my 8 PM flight. There is a hold up. The weather is horrible, it's windy, and lightning is causing the alarm for the airplanes, so all planes are grounded. 10:40 PM, we line up on the tarmac but are held up. The maintenance crew is figuring out why the plane isn't pressurizing and the aircon isn't functioning. Okay, I'm not the one to rush in these circumstances, safety first. But of all nights, please, God, why? I call Beverly, tell her not to worry about picking me up. By the time I land, it will be getting on, and I knew from talking to her she hadn't slept a lot, so a good night's sleep was what she needed. Plus I'm a big boy. How hard could it be? I board the plane and we finally arrive in Melbourne at 01:30 a.m. By the time I get to the shuttle and get to the train station, it's way past 2:30 a.m. So I decide on a coffee and Hungry Jack's where I sit on the station steps, contemplating what to do since the trains don't kick off for another couple of hours. So I'll wait on the steps and a random guy comes up, small talk. He asks me for some tobacco, I give him some and his friend walks over and I talk to the new mate, starting to get a little wary of these guys. The first guy offers me the smoke he rolled. I refuse, he insists, so I have a drag. I pass it to his friend who thinks it's a new oxygen and has the rest. The thing is, the one drag I had made me feel uneasy and like gravity was becoming thinner. So I get up and I start to walk towards a cab where the second guy snaps out of his drug haze and starts attacking the first guy. So I make my way towards the cab, but unfortunately, the guys are fighting in the direction I'm walking and the cab driver refuses me entry. So after a few choice words and telling him where I need to go, he takes me on my way to Dad. It's after 05:15 a.m. By the time I get to Dad, where Nikki and Tracy have been waiting line next to him, Tracy greets me and we go inside. I hand in the pounamus Alice gave us and we hold them as we are lying next to him. Tracy telling him we are all together. The girls tell him it's okay to let go, we are all here with him and we love him. And it's okay to go. That was at 05:15. At 05:30, his breathing is less frequent and it has become shallow. We listen and talk to each other, stroking his face and watching him. He passes away at 05:46 a.m. We could count his breaths to him passing. It really was the most real moment I have experienced. He waited for me. He waited till he was married and he had his babies around him. He died having done and had the things he wanted the most around him. He was a man to lead example by. The stories I've heard of his generosity, his selflessness is warming and leaves me with a sense of pride. Ka maharo mātou, we will remember. I've grown a lot since then, to say the least. The reason for the big three is so much bigger than me. It's so much bigger than Strive, Thrive, Live, my sweat for their tears. I started this initially so I could show other survivors, other victims, tools and ways that they can use their adversity to move forward. For years I hated my father. I thought the one time that I did ever see him again, I would end up killing him. Oh, how things changed. After being able to talk and being able to listen, I understood who he was. I understood that the past that he had come from, he had put onto us, having no other tools or no other reasons but to resort back to that. In his dying days, I learned from my uncles and my aunties the stories of their childhood, about the good and the bad, and I'd learned from his new friends the kind of man he was. And moving on, I'd learned to move on myself. So I wanted to share this with you to show you how human it is. That being out in the open, in nature, whether it's a forest that's going to the beach or going to a park, can offer you a sense of self and a sense of being by being a part of nature. There's other parts of it. It also offers isolation and solitude, but in that solitude you can find yourself. If anything, I hope that in the coming years that you are able to use these tools for yourself. So if you can, write a note to yourself, write it to the victim, the child, the person that was hurt, send it to that person or give it to yourself and let those emotions go. If there's anything I can teach you is to strive, thrive and live. And remember that the big three isn't about me, it's about you. So make my big three your big three. Thanks for watching. I do apologise for the long baited letter, but it's something that was deep inside me that I had to share, and I'm so glad that you were here to share it with me. Thank you very much.